Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, my friends all across the globe today, and welcome back to Riverbend Discovery Center. So today we are actually working on the Binturong Enclosure. At first I was not sure what to make this enclosure for in the slightest, but after talking with some of my buddies, we kind of figured that the Binturong would be the best candidate for this little enclosure. So one of the things I wanted to do was have this kind of mesh dome, and I think it came out pretty swell in the end. So what you'll see me actually do throughout this entire first part of the speed build is try and figure out the best way to make a cohesive kind of circle, if that makes any sense at all. So one of the things I do use is a mud pillar trick. And essentially what that does, you're able to freely rotate things and make perfect circles or octagons or whatever the hell you're really working on. So it's just a little technique that I really do suggest you guys start to learn if you guys are hoping to get into a lot more advanced building techniques. Now, with all that being said, one of the first things I want to do here is work on the frame. In the frame, first I wanted to get all the wood done first, and then after I get all the wood done, I start to move on to the actual mesh itself, and I move on to like the surrounding barriers, and so on and so forth. And yeah, it's just a really easy way to kind of make your perfect little domes like that. I probably will have our first update of Riverbend Discovery Center on the workshop soon enough. I definitely do want to get that out there for you guys, so you guys can hop in, blueprint whatever you want, maybe use them in your own zoos, and, just have you guys be able to take pictures in here too, because, I don't know, I love seeing you guys hop in my zoos and take pictures. It's always wicked nice to see that stuff. But with all that being said, one of the things I do regret about this is not getting the mesh to be the same color as the Lynx exhibit. That is something that I really should probably go back and fix, but hey, we could just call it a later addition in that point. Listen, no skin off my nose. But all that being said, you can definitely see me start to focus on filling out those gaps over there. I essentially just double up that mesh over there. And one of the things I do need to stress over here is sometimes there is a little bit of overlap when it comes to making stuff like this. Like, for example, with this, there is a little bit of overlap with the chain mesh. It may annoy some of you guys. For me, it's just the purpose of getting that to be as complete as possible with no remaining gaps. So if there is a little bit of overlap, I don't really mind it too much, as to, you're not really looking at it from that perspective where you would see that clearly. I definitely do build for the perspective of guests first and foremost, and that is something that I do love to emphasize when it comes to my builds. I'm not really trying to make things pretty for, the birds or something like that. I try and make stuff as realistic as possible, so I'm not going to waste time theming areas where guests aren't really going to see. I usually just fill out those areas with foliage and whatnot. So that's usually my attempt at making stuff work out kind of like that. And you can actually see me start to work on this little area over here. So that's where we start to do the mesh on the sides. Nothing too crazy, it's just a pretty simple wall. I do keep the entire build chain mesh, so you can see right from one end to the other. Obviously there's going to be stuff in the way, but I do want to emphasize that that's how it's going to be. Now moving on through here, one of the things I do regret not working a bit more on it, well, let's address the main problem over here first. My game crashed several times throughout the entire building of this habitat because I have so many climbable pieces, and the game takes forever to place pieces next to those, and sometimes when you're running too much on your computer at once, it just crashes the entire game. So I lost a lot of progress every so often when it came to this, and luckily I was able to make myself work myself through it. It was able to come out extremely well in the end, and that is something that I really do appreciate with constant saves and stuff like that. So I really do need to recommend that you guys do that, especially when you're working with a lot of smaller pieces like this. Now, one of the things I did have a little bit of an issue with over here is the actual pathway itself. So as you guys can tell, I'm doing a little bit of a custom walkway using these beautiful limestone pieces to kind of give it a bit more of a grayish concrete kind of texture. And the reason why I'm actually using this like the European cobblestone pathway and not using the replacement mod is because I actually love the look of the borders so much more of the cobblestone texture, well, of the walkway itself. So being able to combine those with the limestone pieces makes it come out extremely well in the end. And I really do love the result that it gives off in the end. So yeah, just working on making that all cohesive. And the fencing, oh my gosh, I really gotta make a new fencing set because this one is giving me a little bit of some problems. It's not really the most versatile. It really does come off really well in the end, but for the end user, it's not really the best. So I do want to go back and probably make a new fence set that could be used a lot more modularly. What is that even a word? I don't even know. But something that can work out a lot better, because when I do stuff like that, it's just a little bit difficult to work with it, and we're going to have some large areas where we will need to use those fences, so being able to standardize that, like, the sooner the better, honestly. And here we go with the actual foliage itself, keeping things relatively simple. I really just want to have this beautiful combination of ferns, as well as bracken and the cowberry bushes, because it all looks so beautiful in the end. Like, just the amount of green that you get in this build, contrasted with, like, the bright orange, I don't know, it just sends you flying in a different way. It looks really amazing. And so we essentially copy these kind of blinders from the other habitats as well, as a way to kind of give the binturongs a little bit more shade. By the way, I went to Roger Williams the other day, and the binturongs were active for like the first time I've ever seen them, and I got to see the little baby binturong, so that was like honestly one of the best parts of my Roger Williams experience so far. But with all that being said, here we are just continuing through the rest of the habitat, adding all the foliage we could possibly muster. And of course, the life-saving pieces of the dogwood bush. I still think that's what it's called. I still don't know. I just type in bush and then I see it, I know it, and I love it. I just don't care to remember the name. Adding these doors on each side and saving just to make sure that we're not going to mess up anything. Adding the bushes, like the Europe pack has come in so clutch for foliage design, and everything about it, there's not one not useful piece in there, if that makes any sense at all. Even the olive trees are extremely useful for when it comes to like smaller trees and stuff like that. I really love how well it turns out in the end. But moving on through here, we're just adding a few more details before we actually get into the center habitat, or at least the actual habitat itself. So this is one of the parts where we actually do lose our progress eventually. So that's a little bit unfortunate when we actually do hit that point, but you guys will be sure to see how this actually comes out in the end. So I'm still using BZ's blueprints. BZ is a wonderful builder. I think he even has his own channel. If you just look up BZ Planet Zoo, you can find him. He's worked with Fauna and so many other awesome creators in the past, so definitely do check that out. But we're essentially copying the same pieces from the primate island and keeping that consistent theme throughout the entire zoo. When you have zoos like this, you could probably imagine that they would want to standardize their habitats as much as possible, so getting that all throughout here is something that I really want to emphasize, and I build it separate from the rest of the habitat, because if we actually built it within there, it would just honestly slow my experience so much down, because again, as I was saying before, the game renders climbable frames like all the time. So building away from all those fence pieces really is a lot better, and if you need to move your workspace somewhere else, I really do suggest doing that because it turns out so much better in the end. As well as decorating the interior of the habitat, just nothing crazy, just going through with the periwinkle leaves, going through with the bracken and stuff like that. I wanted to keep the ground kind of overgrown a little bit because binturongs are arboreal creatures, so you wouldn't really see too many trotted paths down below. Instead, they would really opt to use, like, you know, all the areas above for all their climbing needs. And I throw a couple of those like dead trees in there. I throw some enrichment in there as well, and essentially just keeping them happy. But I do apologize if I'm still sounding a little sick. I'm still not fully recovered yet, but I hope you guys enjoy everything that's to come with the rest of the B-roll. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next video. Take care and have the most wonderful of wonderful days.